Can I be honest? I think it's the greatest thing to ever happen to the Republican Party. I really do. I think if a communist takes over New York City, I think that's a gift to the Republican Party. It's sad for New York, but it's a gift. And New York will recover because, you know, sometimes you need a shock like that to straighten you out. So but it's politically, it's probably a very good thing.
Mr. President, can I ask you about immigration, crime, and the World Cup, actually? So
that's a lot of
you have a number of cities that are pushing back against your immigration deportation move as well as your crime initiatives. Some of those cities.
I don't think they're very much.
But some of those cities have World Cup games. Yeah. Seattle, San Francisco.
They're going to be very secure.
But could those games move if they don't cooperate with your crime push?
Well, that's an interesting, I guess, but we're going to make sure they're safe. They're run by radical left lunatics and that don't know what they're doing. Look at Washington, D.C. I just got numbers. There's like no crime in Washington, D.C. You, Jeff, will not be mugged walking down the street. You can walk down the street with your family. You can walk down your street with your wife, your daughter, your son, and you're not going to be. We took out 1,700 career criminals that we're not allowing back. And we have this city in great shape. You know, there was a time when not long ago, when every single week you'd have at least one murder. And look what's happening with Washington. It's safe. I went to dinner in Washington just to prove a point. I gave a press conference in the middle of a street. I wouldn't say Secret Service was thrilled, but I did it, and here I am. Look, Washington, D.C. is such a great example of what can be done. We did it in 12 days. We made it very safe in 12 days, and now it's much safer than that. One other thing, I drove around Washington over the weekend, and I said, look at the difference. The grass looked great. Everything looked great. You know, we had a lot of our National Guard, and we didn't ask them to do it. They did it themselves. They're proud. They're great. And they were picking up paper. They were cleaning. The place looked really beautiful. So we have a great Washington, D.C. We, as you probably know, we're going into Memphis, and we're going into some other cities, and very soon we're going to go into Chicago. It will be safe for the World Cup. If I think it isn't safe, we'll move it into a different city. Absolutely, we'll take the world. If I think it's not, it's actually a very fair question. If I think it's not safe, we're going to move it out of that city. If, like the governor of Illinois, who is, you know, look, between last week and the week before, 11 murders, and 38 people were shot. Then he gets up and says, this is a very safe, and then he says crime is better. The reason crime is better is because Cash put, about 5 months ago, a whole team of FBI people there to get ready for when we go in, and they've lowered it a little bit, you know, like 20–25%, which isn't good enough, but it's a good start. But that was only put there because they're preparing for us to go in. And they've done, by the way, they've done a good job. So then Pritzker gets up, we've lowered crime 25, it's because the FBI was there. So, no, if any city we think is going to be even a little bit dangerous for the World Cup, or for the Olympics, you know, where they have Olympic overthrow, right? But for the World Cup in particular, because they're playing in so many cities, we won't allow it to go to, we'll move it around a little bit. But I hope that's not going to happen, yeah.
Mr. President, Director Patel this morning indicated that the shooter in Dallas had been using an app to track ICE. Does your administration have any plans to take down those apps or get them removed or any?
Well, I can't tell you about that, but it tells you when they want to wear masks or they want to hide a little bit, why that's so important. But these are great patriots, the ICE, and what a tough job they have. What an unbelievably tough job they have. And think of it, what are they doing? They're taking hardcore criminals out of our country and putting them back. These were largely criminals that were given to us by Joe Biden and his group of radical maniacs that surrounded this desk, just like these people surround the desk now, but they're not maniacs, they're very solid people.
Thank you, sir.
I'm glad I prefaced it. But they're great. We have a great cabinet. We have great people. And he didn't have great people. He had terrible people. Look at Afghanistan. Look at the people he had running our military. That could happen. The most embarrassing day in the history of our country was Afghanistan. And 13 young people died. They don't ever talk about the 38 that were horribly wounded with legs and arms and everything else, really horribly wounded. So the country's respected like it's probably almost never been respected before. I think we're respected at a level, and a year ago it was a dead country. We had a dead country a year ago. This country was dying. It was really in bad shape. Let's talk about the next subject, can we?
One of the most powerful deterrents we have to violent crime is the death penalty. As you said, your administration has taken bold, decisive steps to ensure that Washington, D.C. is once again a safe and secure city for its residents and all who visit. This is a presidential memorandum that directs your Attorney General and your U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Judge Jeanine Pirro, to fully implement the death penalty here in Washington, D.C., where the evidence and facts of a case indicate that the death penalty should be used.
Okay? Everybody understand? Death penalty in Washington. You kill somebody, or if you kill a police officer, law enforcement officer, death penalty. And hopefully there won't be that. So again, it's way down. I mean, we have had week after week after week where we haven't had a murder. I said that the other day in front of the president of Poland. The press was here, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to announce that Washington, D.C. has not had a death in 4 weeks, a murder. And he looked at me, he goes, is that good or bad? You know, he said, what kind of a place is this? But it's true for years. I mean, every week, essentially, somebody got killed or more than one. And this is a very safe city right now. We don't play games. And, you know, it's interesting. We took these careers out, career criminals. They call them careers. They left the word criminal out. But we took the careers out of here. And they're now brought back to their homes, or they're in jail, or they're in a jail in another country. And hopefully they're not coming back. And we have to maintain it. You can't just leave, and we have to maintain it. We've gotten along fairly well with the mayor. You know, she's getting a party that hates that the city's becoming safe. I mean, they're actually criticizing her because the city's becoming safe. But this is becoming this is right now a very, very safe city. This went from the most unsafe city in the country to the safest city in the country. There's no city any safer. That's a pretty big achievement. And we really did it in 12 days. But if you add an extra week to it, that'd be nice. And I mean, you can go out to dinner. Restaurants are booming. You know, the restaurants were dead. They were dead. Even if you got to the restaurant, then somebody would come in and hold you up. You know, they'd hold up the whole restaurant. They go to Uber. Young ladies in the White House, they'd call Uber for protection. They'd run to the car because they were petrified to be from the entrance of their building to the car. Now they feel safe. They're in the car, and then the car gets hijacked while they're in the back of the car. This was what we were living in. We were living in hell. People that work in the White House, every time they see me, young women in particular, say, thank you, sir. And I don't even ask them about what. I know exactly. I made their lives. Now they're living in a beautiful, glamorous place called Washington, D.C. with no crime, and that's the way it should be, okay? This is the death penalty for somebody that kills people in Washington, D.C. I think it's capital. It's a very interesting capital punishment, capital city, right? It's capital. But this is our capital city. We can't allow that to happen. People come in from Iowa to look at the Lincoln Memorial, and they end up getting killed. It doesn't happen anymore. It's not going to happen. And if it does happen, it's the death penalty for the person that did it. And this goes into effect.
Yes, sir.
Right? Pam, is that right?
Yes,
Could
sir.
you speak a little bit about that?
Yes, sir. Not only are we seeking it in Washington, D.C., but all over the country again. And as you saw very recently, we are now moving the inmates who were on death row, who Joe Biden or the auto pen commuted their sentences off of death row. We're moving them to supermax facilities where they will be treated like they're on death row for the rest of their lives, President Trump.
Okay, that's a big statement. Thank you very much.